tree's here.
The tree's here, yeah. So it might be a bit confusing for you guys because a little peek behind the curtain. As you know, we record 2 episodes in one go, but the next episode you're about to hear in 2 weeks' time was actually recorded
a week ago.
So there'll be no tree in the episode that comes out in 2 weeks' time, which is our big sort of year in review episode that we usually do. But yeah, in this episode we've got a nice Christmas tree in the background.
Again, I guess it's right though, because when that one comes out, it will be after Christmas.
Yes.
And you'll hear the debate of us at the start of that episode going, is it Christmas? Will it be after Christmas? It will be after Christmas.
Yeah.
So again, technically it's okay for the tree not to be there. But yeah, we sat down with the full intention of doing 2 episodes in a day. And then we spoke too long in that episode, didn't we? There was obviously a lot to review.
Yeah.
A really, really great episode. I'm really excited for that one to come out and to kind of run down and do how our year's been, our highs and lows and the rest of it. But it left too little time to then get this episode done, which is obviously the one you're hearing now.
Yeah. So be prepared for a bumper episode in 2 weeks' time. And I know that's going to be the time where everyone's busy and probably not listening anyway. But when you sort of get back to work, get back to your desks and have a podcast to listen to, you'll have 2 hours of us rambling about our year to listen to. So.
That's it. If you got while you're doing your taxes, you can put us on, or in January, if you're still kind of working through that edit pile, you can put us on then. If you've got a long drive on the way up to New Year's Eve or on the way back down from New Year's Eve, you could listen to us then. So
I still can't believe there's people that do their taxes in January. I know. I do mine on April the 6th. I'm like, right, I've got to do my taxes. Wish I could be that guy.
I do mine on like January the 25th. So I've got time for the payments to clear the whole thing. I don't know, it'll have to change though, won't it? And I guess that's something which will kind of is kind of a good, maybe a little starter of this, things not to do when we talk about this. This episode is going to be about the realities of being self-employed. It's a fun one. I think it was. We kind of have a list, don't we? A board of kind of episode ideas that go on the pile. And this one seemed like a really good one to do at this time of year. Most people that work in our industry, photo video, are freelancers or self-employed. Or maybe you're someone out there which is still trying to hold down a job and do weddings on the side. And next year might be the big year where you finally decide to make the leap. And, obviously, although you're kind of in the throes of doing some of that already, I think we just thought it'd be a nice idea to do an episode all about kind of the realities or the things that maybe people don't tell you, or the less glamorous sides or the ups and the downs of being a full-time self-employed creative.
Yeah, hopefully it helps people that are maybe looking to go self-employed, but also it's just nice to hear it from other people that are self-employed, isn't it? Just like, the struggles. Like people just like to hear that when like things are, when people, you can relate to things that other people are going through as well. And don't get me wrong, it's a bloody amazing thing to be self-employed. But there are things to know before you go into it, I think, aren't there? So
definitely, and a lot of things, I feel like probably a lot of things that I've written down in my notes are things that I weren't told. I wasn't told. I literally took that blind leap. I didn't really know that many other people that were self-employed. And so a lot of the biggest lessons that I learned come from chatting to other people in the industry, having dinners with videographers, chatting to people that were self-employed, and also people in our industry as well. Because I think some of the things that we do, or because a lot of our turnover is so service-based, we're not buying stuff to then sell it on. It kind of, our businesses do work a little bit differently to other self-employed businesses. So
they do,
it's kind of odd. Like I, chat to a couple of friends that I did have who were already self-employed, like ran shops or, were tradespeople. So there was very much, I need to buy materials, I need to have this. Whereas like, once we've got our kit, we're pretty much good to go and can charge all right money. And a lot of that is for our skills rather than for selling product.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of one of the fun things to get into as well.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also that, like, I don't know, we'll get into how we become self-employed in a bit, but like, for me, there was that pushback from other people. Yeah. Like, oh, you sure you want to do that? You're probably getting a job after a couple of years though, won't you?
Yeah.
Like, or like, when you get a real job then, and those kind of things. And I remember just thinking, like, I mean, I'm 32 now, but it was 8 years ago I went self-employed. So I was 24. And people were like, oh, yeah, are you sure? Like, is this the way you want to go? And but like, no, seriously, what are you doing? Because obviously the weddings aren't going to pay for all of their side.
It's mad, isn't it?
There was a lot of that, and like that actually motivated me more to do it. But that people can make you feel, who have been in a job for a very long time or are very much set in their ways, like it's a bad decision.
Yeah, but I still reckon I get asked 2 to 3 times a year now from a guest at a wedding. Oh, so what do you do in the week then? Yeah. And you go, I do like this or that. What, you're actually full-time doing this? And you go, this is actually my job. Yeah. Like, I don't do anything else, like, or maybe other photography, but I pay my bills, I pay my mortgage, I feed my family, I fund my trips to Disney World purely on holding this camera and pressing the button on top.
Yeah.
And that really kind of blows people's minds sometimes. I think there's still a big misconception, or, kind of in the wider community or in kind of general public, that there's a lot of them that still think that a wedding photographer is just a job for the weekend.
Just a hobbyist photographer, like a mate with a camera, basically.
Yeah, very much so. Or maybe I just give that like kind of unprofessional, like aloof vibe that maybe I shouldn't be doing this full time. But yeah, again, even now, and I would have thought as years gone on or the weddings that you go to slightly change, you still kind of get that element of it. It's still something that kind of like, it never kind of fails to make me smile that people go, oh, so is this your full-time gig then?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. Can I just say, so I've been sitting here thinking something's wrong. We're on the wrong side of the table.
Oh, we are, aren't we? Do you know what?
I'm looking at you left, and it feels really weird rather than
bizarre,
turning my body
it?
to the right.
It's because we flipped the set over, but we stayed in the same sides of the room, haven't we? This is going to be so weird. Yeah. Like when we come to do the artwork, I'm going to be on the other side. Oh, it's like being in a bed. You know, when you get, maybe else this is one, but you know, like when you go to bed, like I always sleep on the same side of the bed, on my same side of the sofa. Yeah. And I'm quite particular about that.
You turn to face the same way as well when you sleep. I don't know about you, but after sleep,
I'm on the wrong side of the couch bed. It feels very weird.
I love that.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I was just sat here thinking, why does it seem so strange, like turning this way?
I've never seen this side of the face before. Do I look better on
I've got the bad angle here now. Yeah.
Be thankful you've got hair. I went out for a reason. So yeah, let's kind of dive in. I think one of the other things I think which never fails to surprise me, which I don't think I put in my notes, is I was having this conversation at the wedding that I shot on Sunday with the violin player at the start. We were talking about like self-employment and stuff, and I was like, there's still kind of feel there's those two classic questions that everybody asks you when you're self-employed is, oh, are you keeping busy? You keeping busy? Or also like, oh, I bet you do. I bet you have a nice bit of cash in your pocket, don't you? And they always assume that you take cash under the table so that you don't pay tax on it. Yeah. And also that the goal is to be as busy as possible. Mm-hmm. And I find that really odd. Maybe it's like a British thing, I don't know, but it's almost like because you work for yourself, you should want to work yourself into the ground in order to be successful. Or if you're not busy, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. Whereas like,
definitely that.
And I think that was probably one of the biggest misconceptions when I first came in, that was like, you know, that knowledge of having to take everything. Like, oh, I should do it because I get the money for it. Like I get the whole reward of doing that job.
So we should take everything.
And I should do this, and you know, no, we don't get holiday pay, we don't get sick. Oh, I need to take this, need to take that. And it's like I'm probably going to need that sick pay if I run myself into the ground doing everything. And like, over now, like the decade or near decade of self-employment I've had, I've come to realise that being busy isn't the answer. That's why the biggest thing is having balance, having enough money or charging enough money to do the amount of work that I want to do, still live the lifestyle that I want to lead, but still have all the freedom of working for myself.
Yeah, there's that phrase of like, oh yeah, just like you say, are you keeping busy, or are you busy enough? And often, like, I would find that on corporate jobs, people would be like, so you busy then? Yeah. And it's like, well, and they couldn't really understand when the answer was, well, actually, the aim is not to be busy. Yeah. It's to earn a good amount and not have to work my socks off. And that's like, people sometimes don't understand that, because it's like, if I want to go out, do my own thing in an afternoon, I can. Yeah. And I won't be busy. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't consider myself busy. I'm definitely, I'm behind on edits and that kind of thing. But as the year goes, I've now got 6 months to edit all of these films anyway. So I wouldn't consider myself busy, but I would consider myself successful still. And there's definitely that like British, like, you're not successful unless you're busy. So
unless you are kind of living on the edges of your nerves and burn out and the rest of it. You're not busy, you're not successful. And I think that's it. It's the very fact that we've managed to sustain it for a number of years, and with bookings in for next year, that you go, yes, okay, I can continue to be solely full-time doing this. That's enough. But at the same time, I think it's probably worth saying, for kind of as a kind of a preface to all of this episode, is that I know that full-time self-employment isn't for everybody. And I know that we're going to talk about this obviously from our angle of kind of the realities of the things that we do when this is your full-time job. But there are plenty of people out there which are really quite happy only having it as a weekend gig. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or you should change that. I always think that the only thing that anybody should ever want to be is happy. And I know that freedom, or the fact that I only have this job to do and that allows me to have that freedom in the weeks or other times when I'm not taking on work, was one of the huge motivators of becoming self-employed. But if you have a good job with good benefits, a good pension, all of those, and a job that you really love, and then this allows you to kind of shoot some weddings on the weekend, which you also love, and earn a little bit of extra money, that's totally fine too. Like, we're not knocking anybody, or we're not saying that the goal has to be full-time. That's just, obviously, that was our goals, and so that's kind of the angle that we're going to come at it from. Yeah, and some of this will apply to people who are not full-time self-employed, just general self-employment as it is, won't it? So, and also, it's one of our episodes that I know there's people out there listening that are not photographers and videographers. This will probably apply to most of you guys, probably more so than the other episodes as well. So, we were going to do a little bit, I don't know if we've mentioned it before, but a little bit about how we started and
self-employment, weren't we? So
yeah, so I think that's what I was saying. So I've only ever had really one proper job. That's what I always call it. I don't consider this a proper job. It's I feel like I'm living the dream. So I started at a butcher shop when I was 16 years old. I left school, worked there as like on the weekends whilst I was at college and then university. And then obviously as I started to freelance, I kind of worked there a little bit less. But it was a really small place. It was, by the time I left there, I'd been working there for 12, 13 years. So my boss was more like my friend. There's only me, him, and one other person that worked there. So it was a really, really small business. So I think I probably learned a lot from him about self-employment, because obviously he was, he paid the rent on the shop, he bought all the stuff, and like he was pretty much a one-man band in the running of that business. I was there just to sweep the floor, smile, and serve things to people. But in terms of all of the other kind of infrastructure and how that was managed, that pretty much came from Paul. And I think even after I, first left and went to or set up my photography business, because I ran it for 2 years alongside before I left to go full time. A lot of the kind of tips and tricks that I got, or kind of just ways of managing, because some of the more kind of like technical sides of it and account side did definitely come from him. And so, that was the only job that I ever had. And obviously, again, that gave me a degree of flexibility. I got to the point where I was taking pretty much all of my holiday to shoot weddings. Yeah. And so then it got to the point where it wasn't sustainable, because I was getting no time off to do anything. And that leap became very natural in the end. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Taking that leap is huge between like almost having a full-time job and then just going, okay, I quit, and then just being on your own. Like that's a big leap, and a lot of people struggle to take that leap because they're like, oh, what if this happens and what if that happens? And for me, it was very much a case of I need to have this amount of bookings or money earned from weddings before I go full-time. And it wasn't that difficult for me, because I worked at Debenhams, and it's more or less minimum wage. It's like £7.50, £8 an hour or something. So even full time, I didn't have to do many weddings before I made that same amount of money back. And the weddings, similar to you, I started in 2015, shot my first wedding in 2015, and worked at Debenhams for 2 years while I built that business up.
So
and
we
again,
always mirror each other completely. So again, I shot my first wedding in my last year as a student, and then probably a couple of weddings a year. I've shot a wedding every year since 2009. But it wasn't until 2015 that I got to the point where I was like, no, there's enough money coming in from this now that I have to set up as a business. So same. And then left in 2017.
And then you using all your holiday, and you thinking, okay, well, is it time to take the leap? And like I say, well, for me anyway, like there was that sort of pushback of, oh, everyone keeps saying I need to get a real job and this kind of thing. And like again, that's probably been my only real job apart from a little job I had during COVID. But yeah, I took the leap in 2017. In the end, I had a few weddings under my belt, like as in like booked for 2017. In April 2017, I left and was like, okay, this summer I'm gonna go hard with it. I'm gonna earn enough to pay the same amount as I would have if I was working at my department store. So, and then took the leap from there.
I think that's it, and I'm sure something that probably is a better question for the end of the episode, but I instantly felt that once I'd left, it only took a few months, and maybe I left my job in the April of 2017. So more or less I stayed there until my first, I think I left on the Friday and my first wedding was the next day.
Okay, yeah.
So kind of I knew that I was going to earn right up until my weddings were going to, those final payments were going to start landing.
Yeah.
So that I didn't have like a gap. But even after the end, or in the middle of that summer, I was like, this is brilliant. Like, why didn't I do this?
Yeah.
Again, because there was, when you've got that kind of foot on both boats and they're both sailing away from each other and the slings are getting wider, you've got to leap one way, or you get to that point where you can't juggle both. And I think probably a lot of the nervousness that I had, one was definitely money. Although that I wasn't earning a fortune at my full-time job, I was still earning weekly money, and I got paid weekly at that job as well.
Yeah.
So it was so much easier to manage finances. I could open my wallet on a Thursday and go, even if there was nothing in there, a few coppers, I'm getting paid tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that was kind of quite nice, where weddings were still very much, because they were fewer and far between, kind of they were big hits of money to me at the time, but weren't regular at all. And going from managing my finances on like a weekly basis to then managing it on, okay, I've got 3 weddings then, but then nothing for ages was a big thing. But also I think for me it was a personal factor, because I worked in such a small business. There was that, well, if I leave, I'm probably going to leave him in the lurch.
Yeah.
Like, so I did give him like a really long notice period.
To him, right?
Yeah, so, like I think I told him just before the Christmas that I'm going to leave in the April. Yeah. So there was like a 4-month period of trying to find someone to replace me, so that there wasn't such a big hole in that. And, me and Paul that work at the butchers are still friends to this day. So I wouldn't have wanted, on a personal front, to always go, oh, there you are, you pay me weekly, 7 days I'm gone.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that as a person. And I think knowing again, with self-employment, I've always tried to treat people the way that I wanted to be treated.
Definitely, yeah.
And the reason that I've maintained that relationship, and again, I went back and worked there for a little bit, doing odd deliveries and stuff during COVID times, is because I maintained that relationship.
Yeah, and having that respect for them and knowing that like he's running a business too, so he needs to like have that time to. You just go, right, I'm doing all right now, so see you later, I'm off. Yeah.
Which I wonder if I'd have worked for a bigger corporation like you did, and wasn't maybe valued in the same way, that it would have been really easier for me to just go, I'm done. Like,
I kind of felt like that, to be honest, and I don't like my individual managers were absolutely great with it, considering like it's not a anyone who works in retail knows it's not a very flexible job. Like if there's overtime to be done, you're made to do it or you're shamed for not doing it by the big managers, right? But I was quite lucky in that there was a couple of managers I had who like knew my situation, knew where I wanted to be in a year, 2 years time, and like gave me like sneaky days off here and there. For obviously I had to take leave, but like they were just a bit more flexible with it. As long as there were times when I was like, can I have this day off? And they were like, if you do every single day of Black Friday, then you can have that day off. Yeah, deal. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that period between sort of just leading up to it, probably the year leading up to being full-time self-employed, is the hardest I've ever worked.
Definitely.
I would work during the day. It was, it's 9 to 6 at Debenhams, and then I would get home, have dinner, and work till like midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on. And I always say that like that's the hardest I've ever worked. Going full-time actually felt like a breath of fresh air. Like actually, like okay, I'll work hard, and there's a bit more of that underlying anxiety of okay, if I don't, then I'm not earning, but I'll never work as hard as I did then, because it was like 14-hour days. And
I think it must be hard as well, particularly that we were both, like I said, we were both in our 20s when that happened, is that I don't think I had that stamina to do that then. And I look now and think, well, there were times particularly where like, we're recording this at near Christmas time, that Christmas time was the absolute busiest time at the butcher's. And I used to sometimes work in that week leading up to Christmas. I would work 12, 14, 15-hour days there. And I even remember in those last couple of years before I left, where literally one week I walked away from the butcher's at like midnight, went and shot a wedding on a Saturday, and then went back again at like 6 a.m. on the Sunday. Just to go straight. And it was because the wedding was just like, no, I need to slot that in. But I couldn't afford to take the time away from that. Or again, like you say, you work there all day, you come home, I ate my food, and then I edited well into the evening because I had to still keep those deadlines. But when you're working, say, a full-time job, you still want to maintain some sort of a weekend with your partner. That was the only time to really. And I probably never worked physically so much.
The spinning plates is a lot, isn't it, at that point? And it's probably, like you say, it's harder to do that than it is to do one or the other. And that's why that leap is so difficult, I think, isn't it? And a lot of people say, and this is probably true as well, that you should have, some money in the bank, a decent amount of money in the bank before you go self-employed. Probably one of my biggest mistakes was not doing that, because it meant that I was like scrambling for any job, any money. But at the same time, it gave me the motivation I needed. I'm not really a saver, I'm a spender, and that's just the way I've always been. And I went into it with enough prospective income, but not really a savings pot. So I knew that I had weddings that I had to film and owed me money, but I didn't go self-employed with like 10 grand in my savings account.
Me neither.
I just went in, I just dove in and hope for the best.
I think obviously I saved a little bit of money from those times where I was still shooting weddings and stuff. But again, it was never done on a very, because of my lack of bookkeeping till the end. It was never much, okay, I have enough money to pay 6 months' wages before I leave. It was very much, okay, well, if I leave my job, say, in April, I shoot a wedding the next day, that's going to have paid me by the time I even leave. I know that I've got, say, 20-something weddings that year booked in, and if half of them had cancelled, I probably would have been coming back to there with my cap in my hand, going, please, can I have it back? But again, with that enough blind faith that, okay, as long as they pay me, I'm going to be fine to live on that. But then there's still that piece where I'd been like you from 2015 to 2017 had kind of the best of both worlds. Although I was probably on like an absolute road to overwork and burnout, I was still getting a wage from a full-time job and some money from doing weddings. And I think it wasn't until I probably had a really honest conversation with Ro, and she was like, but at the moment you're literally maintaining, like you are shooting, you are editing, and somehow you're managing to book, and probably because I was cheap and again, whatever. But all of those things that you need to do to grow your business, you're just not getting the time to do. Like your blogging was non-existent, your marketing was non-existent, because there was just no time in the day.
Survival.
All you were doing was taking the holiday to shoot the wedding, editing it in the evenings and delivering it. And that was it. And it's like, as soon as you get that time back, because you're not spending 40 hours a week at your job, if you spend those 40 hours on your business, you're going to generate so much more.
Definitely.
And I think that if you look at my growth period between sort of 2010 and my first wedding and 2015 when I started the business, to then from what it was like 2017 to 2020, the rises in those graphs are absolutely are crazy.
With how much you charge, with the quality of work, with your marketing.
Yeah.
And it's easy to sit there and be like, oh, well, I've only got 10 weddings for next year, so I probably can't go full-time self-employed. But think about the amount of time you'd have to market.
Yeah.
Like, if you can get 10 weddings while you're working a full-time job and trying to market as well, then you could easily like fill up that calendar.
Yeah.
I think it really is as simple as that, as long as you do your sort of work and, do your research, do education, that kind of thing. So,
but I think as well, obviously, when you've got a job, like you said, there was, you had those managers that kind of were flexible, or obviously I had Paul that was really good to me. And I think a lot of times those people either, like in his case, was self-employed and know how hard it is to establish a business, so it was encouraging. But I like to think maybe some of those managers that were good to you probably secretly wanted to work for themselves and just didn't have something they were that passionate about to kind of get something going. But
one of them did, I think. One of them had a property outside.
Or you can almost see the potential in it, and they want to kind of pass that on.
Yeah,
They don't want to see you still there in 10 years' time going, I'm going to jump next year, I'm going to jump next year.
Yeah.
And then didn't. And I always think that maybe sometimes a lot of those people that, again, are your biggest skeptics, they go, oh, you sure you want to go employed? Oh, it's so much easier working for somebody. Deep down, probably want to do
something,
and it's easier to kind of, like, they're cautioned, then they're trying to pass those on to you so you don't make the leap.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I still think it's probably one of the scariest things
definitely
that I've ever done, but I still think now that looking back, that sense of achievement to go, no, I actually have made this work.
Yeah.
Like all off of our own shoulders is a hell of an achievement, and probably something we don't do enough, because, like we would win Employee of the Month every month, even if you had a crap month, because you're the only person in your business. But you don't get those chances often to sit there and go, actually, do you know what? Like, I've made a business pretty much solely on my own back that's turned over a good amount of money this year. It's serviced this many clients. Like all of those things. When you had an appraisal at work, you'd get an end of year review. And maybe that's what next year, in 2 weeks episode's time. And in the 3 years that we've done that now, that episode, I've almost treated it a little bit like that. It has been a really review for the year.
Well, what's gone wrong? Like, what do we need to improve next year?
And to have kind of each other to bounce that off of, I think has been a really good thing. But in those other years, I probably didn't set like business goals for the next year, or like, oh, how many bookings do I actually want for next year, or when do I need to look at that? I didn't. It was just, okay, this is great, let's go again.
I think I completely agree. Yeah, and I think it's hard to take that leap if you are already cushy in your job as well.
Yeah.
Like, I was in the kind of unique situation where, although I'd worked at Debenhams quite a while back then in various different stores, like they moved me at the very last 6 months or whatever to like a mechanic job, which if you know me, I have zero DIY skills, and so I was like learning on the spot. And don't get me wrong, like part of my job was I was sharing it with other people, and part of my job was to create systems and things like that, which is a bit of me, and I like that level of organisation. But it became, as time went on, I was doing like some of just the worst, like bottom end chores I was in the basement moving stuff around for hours and hours on end. And I started hating it, and it made it so much easier.
Yeah.
But I also know people who actually quite like their jobs and and earn a really good income from their jobs, but would still quite like to be self-employed and make that jump. And that has got to be so much harder.
And also, I think particularly, again, when we made the jump, my commitments were pretty low.
Yeah.
I had rent to pay.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was lucky that obviously Ro had a full-time job. So as long as, we could kind of contribute equally to our rent or whatever. But I think if the very worst happened and there was a quiet month, she probably could have helped and topped me up. But I had no children. We didn't have the dog. Like any of those, we didn't have a mortgage. Like we were living in a flat with pretty low rent at the time. And we could have really tightened up. But we weren't going on holiday anyway because I was taking a holiday to work. So it wasn't as if there was loads of budget that was needed to kind of go, oh, well, we've been going on nice holidays up to now, but they're going to have to stop for a couple of years. So it was like you say, it was pretty low commitment. It was just a case of,
if I earn this much, which is like the bare minimum I need to pay rent,
that's going to cover that. And then the growth, and maybe that's why kind of the travel and the other things have come in those years since, because again, the budget's been there, where in those first years, let's say it was very much, okay, the full time is the goal. I literally need this, as long as I can make this much money, again, which covers the basics. I'm good.
Yeah, but again, one of the biggest reasons that we both went self-employed was for the time freedom, right? I think there's plenty of advantages and disadvantages of it, but for me, and I think for you too, like having the freedom to get up and do things the way we want to do them. Like it's not like we have to start at 9 and finish at 5. Like if we want to take a morning off and maybe work a bit at the weekend, we can. If we've got 2 weddings at the weekend, we could take 2 days off during the week. It probably doesn't end up like that. But you have the freedom to do that. Like we're sat here doing this right now. It doesn't earn us any money. We just quite enjoy doing it. And we call it a job. And then we're going out later, which to a non-work related thing. But which we haven't had to ask anybody for the time off.
Can I have the time off for this? And I think that's probably one of the biggest things as well, is that, over that time, I left my job when I did. Obviously, my dad passed away in 2020, was ill for a number of years before that. It meant that personally, I was allowed to be a lot of there to help with hospital appointments, or even just going to see him. That family time that I think I got back is, now looking back on it, is one of the things that I think I treasure the most, is that to go, I could just go and pop and see them. I didn't have to feel guilty or having to fit that in on the weekend, or, if they weren't free, I could literally make work fit around my life. And that doesn't sound like, I was just, but if you wanted to go and do marginally more social things, or if you go, I want to go to the gym at 11 a.m. because it's the quietest time, you fit it around your work. And
exactly what I do,
particularly, I think with our industry, we haven't got premises that, we list in the window that we're open between 9 and 5, and we have to stand there manning the counter to then, or we don't have shops to run. As long as, we make our meetings and we make, our bookings, that really, when we do the rest of it, if we choose to edit literally through the night, that's up to us. And I'm sure at the moment, with baby, there could easily be times where you could be tempted to turn your desk back on.
Probably going to happen, but it's not happened yet.
But you have that flexibility if you want to, don't you? And I think, like a lot of the things that are in our lists, they are the best and worst things about this job. Is that I think for anybody to be self-employed, you have to be incredibly self-disciplined. To kind of go, no, that needs to get done. Whether it gets done in like lovely fluffy office hours, or it gets done at 9 p.m. at night, it gets done. And I definitely have had times where I'm going, okay, I can take the morning off today because I've got to go and do this. But I know that means then that I'm going to be working into the evening because that needs to get finished. And again, I value that freedom over going, I've got to be at my desk in the evening. You shift your work day.
Like you say, I think, the freedom of time allows you to walk your dog when you want, go to the gym when you want. And there's that element of, if you want to go on holiday, you don't have to ask anyone for annual leave. Like there's no like, this person's got this holiday, and like that is a dream. Like the
but also doing that when you have a partner like you and I do, that only have a set amount of holiday a week. Like when you get to this end of the year and you go, that's it. Like I've got like 6 or 7 weeks with no weddings now. I've actually got a little bit of money. We could just go away. Like we should do this.
And then they're like, we've got no annual leave left.
I've got no holiday left. Come on. I'm sat here. I want to. And again, if you want to, I know people that do that will go on long term, travel breaks over the winter, and they can edit and do calls from where they are. Or it's not there's even a holiday. You can literally go, I want to live in 2 different countries, and kind of, we'll share our time between these places because we can.
I know a bloke who went to every year. In January, he'd go like for a full-on like holiday at an all-inclusive for a month in January, just because it's like, right, I'm done now. I don't need anything else. And that flexibility is amazing. And like you say, for like other reasons, like personal reasons, like with your dad and with my granddad this year, like my dad called and was like, Granddad's here. I was there. I spent a week there, and like there was no one telling me I couldn't.
And I think that must be one of the most heart-wrenching things in those instances when someone goes, you need to come. If you're sat at a desk at work and then I've got to go and plead to your boss and go, I know I've got this booked in, but can I do this? Well, you have that, that then you are the boss and you go, no, sorry, this stops. I go. And again, the same with, things that happen with baby, like you said in the other things, like, although that's really hard when you've got a book in and then you're making phone calls trying to find cover. But if someone said to you, no, you're expected to be here or you're going to lose your job. And it's like, I miss out on the birth or I miss out on on seeing my granddad before he passes, or I have to go to work because someone's told me to. Like I look at those things now, this far into them, and go, why would anybody do that? Like I'll just go, fine, have your job, and walk, because I have that freedom of choice over what I do. And again, like it's one of those things that having that ability to do that is one of the things that if I had like a leaderboard of all the things I love about being self-employed, that would be right up there.
100%.
Like don't get me wrong, like having to earning good money, going on those long trips are nice, but that day-to-day freedom that this job allows me, I think is probably the absolute.
We take it for granted, but it definitely is the best thing. And I attribute that to something else, which is not having the Monday feeling. It really cringes me out when again, like I had a job during COVID, and this is not to put anyone down who was at this job, but there was a lot of, oh, it's Monday. Oh, I've got that Monday blues and things like that. And on Wednesday, the gifts would come through. It's hump day. And then Friday, oh, thank God it's
TGIF.
Friday. Yeah. And like it really got to me, because I was like, if you hate your job that much, that every week is, oh, it's Monday, I've got to work now.
Yeah.
And then every Friday is like, oh, thank God that week of work is over. Then why are you in it?
Yeah. And what are you doing with your life? That's the bigger issue, I think.
And that stressed me out quite a lot. But I don't know about you, but I don't get any of that. I don't get the Monday blue. In fact, on Sunday evening, I'm like quite excited to get back to the office tomorrow and get on with things. And I've done my weekend of activities or filmed a wedding or whatever. And I'm feeling, quite excited to get back to it. And on Friday, I'm either doing a wedding the next day or, I'm excited for the weekend. But at the same time, I'm not feeling like, oh, I'm so done with work now. I need to get away from it.
It's never the tasks or the work which gives me those heavy feelings. It's normally the volume or the dauntingness of, oh, I've got like the big edit pile.
Yeah.
Like does kind of loom on you if it does start to pile up.
Yeah.
But actually doing the editing I actually really like, or doing the task is the thing that I feel like I spoke about my dad a lot in this, but I've also, like he said to, or instilled in us from quite young ages, is that you need to find something that you really, really love to do.
Yeah.
And find someone stupid enough to pay you to do that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's always something I've always kind of carried with me. And so, and again, obviously having supportive parents, I think was probably another thing which has obviously really helped. And neither of them were self-employed, but having that idea of like, yes, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I saw a reel come up yesterday actually, which was kind of a guy reading a thing, and it was like, and it's something to the tune of what a privilege it is to be so tired from doing a job you love.
Yeah.
Like
True.
5 years ago, if you looked at yourself in this job, you would kill to be you now.
Yeah.
And so, although, don't get me wrong, there are times burnout is real, overworking is real and the rest of it, but it's almost having that mindfulness of going, I can't moan too much because this is everything I ever wanted.
Yeah. You get to the end of August and you're absolutely knackered. You're like, oh, I've got another wedding to do. But then you realise that like you literally work for 30 days of the year and then the rest of the time you can go out and do what you want. And again, even
like when you've been doing those triples, I'm sure like, and I've said it in the past when I've done those kind of big back-to-backs, it's the hours, it's the physical exhaustion of doing that many hours of work so close together. It's never the being there. And sometimes I can come home and I've laid in the middle of the floor in front of us and gone, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
And have kind of scooped my stuff back up, put everything on charge, have woken up the next morning, probably even driven to the wedding, yawning and thrived by the coffee in my Yeti. But the second that I walk through that door at prep, there's something like washes over me, I surge, and I'm straight back in. And I'm like, yes, I am living, like, I'm back to me.
Yeah.
And then I might be even more broken when I finish the next one. But when you're at the job, there's never that, oh, I can just get through today. Like, the bit of the doing the job is the best bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like...
And you're obviously going to be exhausted, but because it's something that you enjoy and you're not having to go and sit in an office and do something you hate for 7 hours, it's like, And
I think that's it, is when, with all those people that are saying to you when you start to go self-employed, are you sure you want to? Or you think it's the right thing? And it's like, I'm almost at that point now. It's like, I couldn't have afforded not to.
Yeah.
Like, I would not, like, I look back on the choices that I've made and go, this is one of the best things that I ever did.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford not to. I think some people are very much destined to be their own bosses, and some people thrive on the routine or being told what to do by others. And it takes a certain person, I think, to really thrive in self-employment. But I think at that same time, I definitely couldn't go back.
No, the thought of going back now and like having to work specific hours and asking a manager if I could have time off and live, it's just really, it's baffling.
It seems so alien, isn't it? It's until you speak to people that is their day to day. And you go, well, work for yourself.
Yeah.
And
but like you say, like you've mentioned before, it does come with quirks. Like you have to be very self-motivated in this job, right? Because you do have the time freedom. There's that temptation to, I could just go and sit and like watch a film or something, or I could take an extended lunch break, or if you're at the gym, then you get back, then you have a shower, then you sort of have your lunch, and before you know it, 2.5 hours have passed, and you're like, okay, I've taken that out in the middle of the day. Or even, a lot of us are guilty of this, I know, is that you'll be editing and it's like, I'll just pop a YouTube video on, and I do that a lot, but I know that I do it, and I give myself that like almost reward or treat once I've finished something, to be like, okay, tune out for 10 minutes, watch a YouTube video. Because if I don't do that, I'm not making the most of my time freedom. Yeah. But I don't get distracted enough where I'm watching like 2 hours of something.
Yeah.
It's
see, I find mine the other way. Like if I have a morning where I'm like, okay, I need to pop to the shop, do the food shop, I might nip in and see my mum, I might go for a run. Then I get home and it's lunchtime. The thought of then starting work after I've had like a morning off is really, really draining. But I think on the flip side to that, sometimes I also find it incredibly hard to stop working.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where someone else comes along, they go, oh, it's 5 o'clock now,
Yeah.
the lights in the office go off, you switch your computer off, you walk out, you might stay that extra couple of minutes to finish that paragraph or to do that little bit. But if I'm on a task, like I can get like Roku call up, says to me, oh, it's dinner now. It's like literally, I'm like 50 pictures away from finishing this at this gallery.
Yeah.
And then it can export for a while. I'm like, I'd stick mine in the oven. And then I can easily be there for another hour.
Yeah.
Or, in the evening, it's like, I just need to do this one thing and then I'll be done. And then I'm still there for most like the evening. I find that mine kind of in blocks. So if it takes me a long time sometimes to kind of get concentrated, but I can easily lose hours, and the ability to overwork is also probably just as easy.
Oh, definitely.
As the ability to not work at all.
But that's a good problem to have, because overworking in this instance means you're probably enjoying it enough to then go back to it. And like you say, like you can end up working, like a lot of the times, especially during winter, I end up just working through my lunch. I'm like, what else can I do? Like it's raining outside, there's nothing going on. I'm just going to sit here and like, have lunch and work and plow on. And it's probably not like the healthiest way. Because again, like if you were working a job, you would probably look forward to your lunch break and not be able to switch off. But there is that element of, all I'm doing really now is sat on my sofa scrolling, so I might as well go back to the office and do some things. And it's a good problem to have, but it is.
And I think also one of the other things as well, which is one of the biggest kind of, I would say the biggest kind of things that held me back in progress, is it's really easy to get stuck in your systems.
Yes,
do you know what I mean? Like at work, they bring in new software and you might moan about it, but you have to learn it and move on. Is that I remember like in those early years still editing all of my photos in like Camera Raw or Bridge and then doing that stuff, and then it's not until enough people are going, well, why don't you just move over to this, and you're like, because it's such an effort to learn new skills, wherever in your job you've got sent for training, it's that but it's really hard to not just go, I'm going to take a day out to learn this because the way that I'm doing it works, and the new way might be quicker, or introducing new things in your business. There's no kind of you have to be really kind of embracing of change and going, okay, there must be a better way of doing this. I'm going to take half a day out from doing the task that I could do the long old-fashioned way to learn something new to save those time going forward. And I think that's something over the course of being self-employed that I've really had to kind of, I'm quite stuck in my ways about things, but almost being embracing of if enough people are saying that this is a game changer, it's worth spending the time looking at.
Something like setting up a CRM, isn't it? And you talk to people about it and they're like, but I do it manually and it's going to take ages to set up a CRM. And you sort of think, it's half a day's work for a lot of time.
For hours
savings
back. And saving your time for the rest of your life.
But when that half a day's work is, okay, I've got to sit down, I've got loads of stuff to do today. Like you kind of have to put that stuff you got to do aside and give yourself that half a day, which is really difficult when you've got a backlog. So,
especially when there's someone pushing you to do it. Like again, usually like when you kind of get at work and they go, we're bringing in a new system, and you moan about that change curve through it, and then you embrace it, and at the end you go, actually it is better. To force that on yourself when you could just give up halfway and go, I should go back to the old way. That's so easy, isn't it? And I think in terms of kind of pushing on for growth is one of the things that I found really, really hard in this industry, and that's kind of length and breadth when it comes, to pricing, or it comes to say systems, to cameras you use. Like it's hard to go, well, is that system actually better without a big financial outlay or renting kit and then trying it at someone's, all of those things. I think it is so easy to kind of do that hard bit and leap. And then if you're not careful, you can easily to get stuck in your ways and always do things the same way because they know they work. But you never evolve that way, do you?
Yeah, and that kind of leads me on to something which I don't think we've put is, especially in recent years probably, is that once you're self-employed, there is that huge sort of pressure and anxiety to keep up, especially with our industry and what we're doing. And like, hugely, there's all of this like going on at the moment, like, our booking's down, our Gen Z changing the way they're doing whatever it is. Like you're constantly switched on to, I've got to adapt and change and got to be like a chameleon and fit into this situation and do this. And it's not like, if you've got a job, it takes a lot to be fired. But if you're self-employed, it doesn't, I guess it does take a lot to end up with a year of no bookings, but you can quite easily slip behind.
I think it's really easy then to blame that on lots of other things as well, because there's no one telling you, again, there's not a boss going, well, why are you losing us clients? Why aren't you doing this? Like to take that hard look in the mirror and go, something I'm doing must be wrong.
I haven't blogged,
what am I not doing? You have to almost sit down like you're your own supervisor and give you those things. And I think I found that over the years as well is that, for all the things we've said about having freedom and that being really important, is that discipline within kind of work has is forcing those things to happen is what's helped me kind of give my time structure. Like, I remember when we used to live in my flat, and I could easily just sit in front of the telly on my laptop doing work. And again, the work wouldn't be great. Where if I know now I need to get this done, like the fact that I have an office, which is, again, it is the smallest bedroom in our house, but that is a dedicated workspace. I try to do very little in there other than work. I try not to go back in there if I'm not working. You know, in the morning, although the commute is across the landing, getting up, putting on clothes rather than being in there in my pajamas. Again, I'll be lying if there wasn't times where I've done Zoom calls with a nice shirt on and shorts underneath. Or in the winter, I've not still got my fluffy slippers on because it's cold. But for the most part, I need to kind of make my working day feel as much like work as it can. That you have that small commute, and I think having the dog is brilliant for that. He forces me to get up in the morning, and though I don't walk to work, I walk him and then come home, make breakfast, then go to work. And then you have a natural break in the evening. And again, wearing work clothes, having, trying to separate work accounts for, I can scroll on Instagram on my account and not look at weddings at all, but having a dedicated account where that is just weddings, and trying to not blur those lines so much that if there are days where I'm feeling particularly heavy about things, the discipline kind of overrides and go, no, that is work and that is life.
Definitely. And I think everyone's going to do this in a little bit of a different way. And like, I think walking the dog is almost like having the commute.
Definitely.
I try and go for a walk in the morning before I start any work to get that bit of fresh air. And I have to have a destination. So I do walk to like the shop or something and just like buy a chocolate bar or something, just so that I feel like, okay, I've walked with purpose this morning. But like, it's almost like having that commute and that separation that I've walked there, walked back to house, and now I'm back to work. And obviously, like, people will do that in different ways, like school runs and things like that. But I think the most important thing for me is, and I think we agree but disagree on this a tiny bit, is like, whatever way you want to do it works. There'll be people, I watched a lot of this guy, is his name Ali Abdul? On YouTube.
That sounds familiar.
Who's like a productivity expert, and he pushes all of this, like blocking out half an hour blocks in your calendar, or I do an hour for reading in the morning and then an hour for this and an hour for this. I would hate that. The thought of confining myself to the boundaries of work for 2 hours and having to just crack on no matter how tired I am, whatever, because it's in the calendar, is frustrating to me. But that might be how some people work really well, is by giving themselves that time. But for myself, I literally have a list of all the things that I could do that day, and then depending on my mood, I pick the things that I want to do, basically. If I want to sit there and do, in the morning, I'll probably do the hardest task, which is usually part of a longer film.
That's what they call it, isn't it?
Yeah. And then as time goes on, I'll do the simpler tasks like ceremonies and speeches. And then by the end of the day, I'm probably sat there with my gaming controller, culling footage and replying to emails, because it's just the easiest thing. So
I found that, and again, I think it really, like, the way that you summed it up there is pretty much perfectly. I think is, if you spoke to 100 different self-employed people, they would all have different things or different quirks
methods,
that they like. And I think it's a case of just finding what works for you. Like, I know I need to have that routine, but I also know as well sometimes, which I'm my own worst enemy with work, and because there is always something to do, the default to just go back to work. So I find that with certain things, like not so much walking the dog, because it's a given, he will come and scratch at my door and bark at me or throw balls at my computer until it's time that he wants attention. But if it was things like, I need to go to the gym, or I'm going to go and see that person that day, if it goes in the calendar, it's very much, no, that's booked in now. It's not flexible. Like, although I could ring my friend and go, oh no, I'm not going to meet you for a walk today, I've got this to do. If it's in the calendar, I will go. Where if it's, and the rest of the time left is time to work.
Time that I
don't need to block myself. Go, say, now this way, I have to call this morning. Then I need to stop that and do marketing for an hour. Again, I can't. If I'm on a task, I want to finish it.
I agree. It's like pod days in the calendar. I'm doing pod day or a social event or whatever it is.
And even if I could probably done with a day back to edit sometimes or to do this. It's like, no, that is in the calendar. That's non-negotiable. It needs to happen. And so I found that having a calendar like that, and also having my work calendar shared, like we have a shared calendar on Apple Calendars with me, and so then she knows that if we're going to try and book social stuff, she knows what weekends I've got weddings on, so it's not so much then it feels that you're always taking from work. I've tried to do this, but you've got a wedding that day. Like, things can get booked, they go in the diary, they stay in the diary. And also I think over the last few years, I've always tried to do that with my holidays as well, is I've always tried to have like my big holiday of the year booked before I enter the next year, that because it's really easy just to fill gaps sometimes,
and then you're trying to look for that 2 weeks,
I've got like 10 or 12 Saturdays in a row that I'm working, where you know, if you want a weekend away or a big holiday, then you feel that work's taking over everything. Where if that holiday's booked in, it's so much easier. Even if a really nice inquiry comes in to go, sorry, I'm already booked.
Yeah.
And whether that booking is, I'm on holiday, but you know that you can't make it back. The holiday's booked then, and you're not going to lose a deposit on it. So it's prioritising, like, isn't it? It's prioritising life as well as work. And I know that that's how my calendar works. Is almost that it's so easy for me to just work all the time that some of that stuff needs to be booked in. Otherwise, I would always just work.
There's definitely like that grind mentality, isn't there? And, you know, I listen to podcasts sometimes with pretty successful people and they'll be like, yeah, I haven't been on holiday in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, I'd rather be less successful than you and have less money. You might be a millionaire, but you haven't been on holiday in 10 years. And at any point, you could die, and you die a millionaire, but with no experiences or whatever.
I think that was one of the biggest things. I remember taking a train journey at the start of the year and listening to the Diary of a CEO with Mr. Beast.
Right, yeah.
And someone saying to him, or Stephen saying to him, why do you think that you've managed to make what you do work?
Yeah.
And he was like, because nobody else is willing to sacrifice as much as I do to do it.
Yeah.
No one would spend the money that
he works 24 hours a day.
And he never switches off. And I think, I could see, and there's times where I feel that work, or just photography or weddings in general, there are days where I feel that it does consume too much of my brain. And I think that is sometimes the harness of having something is doing the job that you love.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't only become, it's just work. That ability to switch off, it's like, it's not, because you're creative, and that's a representation of you and the rest of it. And that want to be better comes from a kind of personal or fulfillment as well as from the benefits of work. And I think there are times where, particularly if I've worked in Devon, I've got into bed and it's like, I can't sleep because I'm still thinking about this. That's something really bothers me to the point where it's like, and I feel like I need to keep working at it.
Yeah.
Where the best thing to do probably is not keep working at it, is to take some time off and have some separation from it.
Most of us who do this, our work is a big part of our personality, and that's just how it is, right? Yeah. Because we're self-employed, because we put that
and we're personal
love
brands
and
as well.
into it.
You know, like people
You're
know us
yourself.
They know us for the things that we like and things like that. So I think it is incredibly hard to kind of sometimes to separate the two, but there has to be, I think, kind of firm barriers, whether they're physical barriers or mental barriers or just certain kind of stopgaps that you put in your day and go, no, that needs to happen.
Yeah. And I think talking about how you put yourself into it and your love and your passion and it becomes your personality, I think one of the things is not talked about too often, or you don't really figure out until it happens, is when it goes wrong and how intense that is. If you mess up at work, to an extent, like, it can be fixed. Like for most things, it can be fixed. Sorry, boss, and you know, and people come together and it's fixed. And because it's not your company that is happening to, you just sort of move on. And obviously, you're going to be gutted you've made a mistake, but it is what it is. But when it goes wrong, or when a couple comes back to you and I don't like this, or you get a complaint, or whatever it is that happens, or someone cancels last minute, you take it really, really personally. Yeah,
I did that, and it very rarely happens. But even something we could quite a simple complaint. I had one at the start of the year. I had a wedding where there was quite an overriding purple colour scheme throughout the day. Again, it was an early year wedding. We were inside in bright minutes, then it turned dull, then we were back outside. In those moments, and that colour kind of changed a little bit throughout the gallery, and they came back and were like, we think this purple looks blue. I don't think you've edited it very well. It doesn't look like the flowers that we had. And I was like, well, I thought I'd done a really nice job on that, considering how changeable the light was. And it's really easy to just go, well, it was them. But I had to actually stop and look back through it and go, okay, fair play, I have messed up here. Let me know how I can fix it. They picked out, I think, like 50 photos from the gallery. In some cases, I hadn't really touched the purple, but I had to make it look more purple than it was because of the colour render or whatever, and then make them happy. But it's like, I almost think I need to fix this. And in those gaps between me emailing and them emailing back, it really did play on my mind. It's like, what have I done wrong? And sometimes you haven't done anything wrong. Like it's your business mind or the company or whatever. Or odd times where I've completely missed a Zoom call. And someone go, oh, we waited.
You get an email and you're like, oh, okay.
Or equally, you sit there on Zoom for 15 minutes and no one shows up.
Yeah.
I'm like, that really annoys me.
I used to get really angry about that.
And I think, that kind of having that mindfulness of, again, taking that step back and going, just chill.
They've got other stuff going on.
It's really not personal.
Yeah.
It's not personal. They haven't thought, we're going to have a really fun joke on this person, make him sit there or stand and wait for us. Or those times, I think it's hard. And
I think because we do this, and because personally, I'm quite open with people about things. I do hear a lot of people who get the complaints, and it's normally like, oh, this person's not in it often or in the photos enough, so can we have them more in the videos? Or like you say, there's a lot of stuff about colours. I think there was obviously like sepia gate and things like that. And I've definitely had a couple, recently who have come back and said, We love it, but it's too, like, the grade's too warm.
Yeah.
And like, I was quite offended because I was like, my first reaction in my head was like, have you not watched any of my films?
Yeah, that's
because
my style.
that is literally my style.
Yeah.
So I edited it, and they've come back like and made it much bluer than I would ever make it, and they come back and said it's still too warm, and I'm getting really frustrated.
Yeah, it's going to feel icy cold when they hand it over.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's going to be like, it's going to look really cold, but for them, it is like they're in the industry, and it is what it is for them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not to take it personally, and I've been in the industry long enough to know that, but that first time when that happens, you sort of think, well, stuff you then. Like it's a bit.
And I think that's a creative thing as well, because it almost seems like it's a slight on your creative style, preference, vision, whatever. And some things in the end, I think it's almost nice, one, to talk to anybody about it. Us having, I think the sooner that you make networks and you make kind of contact with other people who do directly what you do, is a huge help to that. Us having this podcast, I think there's so much that happens off pod where we kind of talk each other down from the edge, or it's so easy to see it when you're not the person that you're not taking it personally. You can see it more matter of fact, but it is hard because it is a creative thing. Then it's like, well, that's my style. Do I have to compromise my style and my vision that they booked me for in order to make them happy? I think that's the hard thing sometimes, is not only of running a business and being self-employed, but running a creative business.
Being creative,
It's so much then, it's like, that's a knock on your vision. It's not just like someone's brought a product back to a shop and gone, it's faulty, can you change it?
Yeah.
Because that's fine. It breaks, you fixed it, you get your new one. It's not like that. You can't just go to someone, your wedding film's broken, I'll just get you a new one. It's not like that, is it? Or very much like, I didn't get pictures of that person because you didn't add them to the group list, or they hid in the corner all day, and now you're telling me that your wedding photos are ruined because it's a really important person's not in them. You can't do it again.
But sometimes it's hitting that switch to business mode and just being like, you know what, they've asked me to do a 5-minute job, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm not going to quote the contract that this needs, per hour editing because they've asked for like a few shots to be removed or whatever. I'm just going to do it because they've paid me a decent amount of money. It doesn't take that long.
And you learn the lesson.
And exactly.
You really learn the lesson. I remember having a wedding really, really early on where they were like, there are 2 photos of my nan. And it's like, but you didn't ask for a group photo with her, and she was very unengaged today. But now, even like more so, when I get to weddings, when you see those guests, you start to see who are sat in the more front rows. You try and piece together the relationships for myself, even if the couple haven't asked for it. So you go, okay, so that's the auntie, okay, that's that person. And you try to make sure that, okay, they're a +1. So if there's not loads of candidates of that person, they're probably not going to cry about it. But if there's
it's always the groom's parents, because they're like, a lot of the time the groom's parents just aren't involved.
That's really true.
Really hard to as someone who doesn't do group shots and things like that, obviously, because of video, it's like, unless they're really active for that, the candidates, then they're just not going to be in it that much.
And that's really hard, isn't it? Because a lot of times you meet parents of the bride traditionally in the morning, but then maybe say not so much the groom parents, or often if the groom has like a fractured relationship, or like the parents are split up, they kind of then distance themselves a little bit sometimes from that person, or because of partners or families. And it can be really hard sometimes to kind of, that I find that particularly if they're not on the top table during speeches, then because the partners sat, it can be really,
on the top table.
Or a lot of times that happens with step parents. If like the stepmom's not in the gallery a lot, the dad will go, oh well, sometimes like, well, where's my new partner? And that's hard. But again, it's you're always managing expectations of things that are kind of, there's a lot to do out of your control, but the buck stops with you, and you have to kind of do a lot of forward thinking, or learning from your mistakes, I think, is important in life.
But like you said, this is the most important thing, of surrounding yourself with other people who are in your industry and in your like circles. Is when that happens and it goes wrong, generally that's the best place to go. Go onto the Facebook group and be like, I've had a couple say this. How has people dealt with that? Someone's dealt with it before, so it's just and that's the best way to do it. So. And before we summarise, we wanted to have a little bit of a chat about like finances, because I think like there's a few things when it comes to finances that, and we're not accountants, right?
But like we said at the start of the episode, again, you're the person, I think we're a really good people to have this, is like you're the person which files your taxes the day after they're due, and I'm the person that files theirs a week before they're
but equally I'm the person who has no savings, and you're someone that has a buffer in your account.
That's probably become quite apparent over the course of the pod, hasn't it? Is that like the latest gadgets out, you're probably buying it, where like I will leave my gear until it breaks, and very much I've always been a natural saver. I don't know why, but I always have, and if I get to the point where it's like, okay, there's always got to be that amount of money left in my business, and sometimes to the core that I've probably have let things go on too long, or I maybe could push things forward if I spent a little bit more, but having that kind of buffer to sit back on has always been kind of it's something which is it bothers me if I don't have it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely not accountants, but there are a few things that you should know that we've obviously learnt along the way. And the first thing, which I love that you put, is why does nobody tell you about payments on account when it comes to your taxes?
100%.
Now this is huge, because I remember the first time that I got quoted a payment on account, and I was like, what? I've been saving 20% of, because I put, whenever anything comes in, 20% of it instantly goes into a tax pot.
Yeah.
And then it got to the end, like got to me submitting my tax return, and it came back and it was like, 1.5 times what it should be. And I was looking at it, I was like, well, I can't work out how this is going on. And essentially you pay, is it half of next year's tax bill?
Yeah, it's a really hard one. It's obviously,
front.
yeah, with PAYE you pay monthly, and then it's just sorted. But with self-employment, you're always paying for the year in the rear view. So obviously we're sat here now in December 2025, and then the tax year that we're going to pay on by the end of January is the 24-25 year.
Yeah,
so you're always paying for like the year behind,
before,
but you pay for so the kind of the roundup payment for that year, and then half of the next year, then you pay the other half in July. So effectively, if you earned the same money every year, by the time you got to January, your 2 payments on account from the last year would almost pay for that. So you're only paying the half in front. But again, that never happens normally. Like I know in my first year of business, I paid that and then the half again. But in my first 3 or 4 years, because I had all that time that we were talking about, I was making pretty big growth in those years. And so by the time you got that, the payment on account didn't even touch what the actual amount that I owed was. And if you hadn't saved that money for tax, that payments on account, would have absolutely and in January, I know again you pay yours in April, but for me to find that straight after Christmas, is.
Well, I'll still pay it when the bill is due.
Yeah, so you can keep interest.
Yeah.
And that's another hack as well. If you don't do it, it's just because it's due then, is if you eke it out to the last, if you can squirrel that money away in somewhere where you're getting some interest on it, why give it to them early when you could be making money on it rather than them?
Yeah, exactly. So huge thing is at least in your first couple of years, try and set a buffer for payments on account, because you might think, I've earned a bit more this year, but then your next year's payment on account will be more, and it's just a vicious cycle. I know there's been a couple of years where I've applied to reduce my payment on account and then just happily paid, because if you do that and then you end up earning more than you say you're going to earn next year, you end up paying like a little bit of interest. But that tiny amount is so much less than what it would be if you're trying to scramble some money for that payment.
I think because I've always tried to save for tax. It's never been too much of a problem, and I always try and overestimate what I save for tax. And then again, once I've paid my tax bill, if there's anything left, I can, it's kind of Christmas bonus time. I can do that. But it is harder. I think that very first year is the year that it hits the most, because normally, again, if you were like us, you've leapt from a job, kind of made your way through, and then it's like, what, they want so much more than I've saved. That money's got to come from somewhere, and I definitely hadn't allocated that in. But I think that was one of the things, again, like from doing a photography degree, and I'm sure like you studied and stuff as well, is nobody tells you, like there's no class in how to run a business. I remember going online and going, how do I set up a sole trade? Get my SA1 form. And it was very much, and I ended up attending like HMRC webinars and doing this and that, to almost a step-by-step guides of how to just get the process of getting set up.
The life skills isn't there, is it? With you know,
and let alone how to do the bare minimum to get set up, let alone how to win at it and like kind of know the loopholes in the system and how to kind of be efficient with those services. Even just doing the bare stuff so you don't get fined, I felt was really hard to get that information. So again, having other people to lean on or other advice to get from even people that are self-employed in any means to kind of keep you on top of that stuff is.
And all of this will build up to this, but just make sure you have your finances in order, get a routine. Like for me, 20% of it goes into a tax account, and you pay more than that really, because you pay, was it like national insurance? My student loan obviously is included in that as well. But I put 20% in because it's 20% of your profits it ends up being, so it kind of like levels itself out. But all of those things account for, and obviously like pension is something we probably won't go into in this episode, but pension is like thinking about your future as well. Like I know that I've not done enough for it. I do have like money saved away for it, but I've not got like a specific pension or I think
again, because we were obviously young and we came from jobs so where we never had like private pensions already start, or work pensions to move elsewhere. And when you're young and you're trying to just pay for everything else and kind of live a life, it's really hard to go, think about the future. But I think both now as we're getting older, it's like, okay, some of that money does need to go away, to go by for quiet years or for retirement, rather than all getting spent on holidays. But that's
when I say I have no savings,
but again,
I do have
there's no discipline. There's no one telling you, you have to take this money out. It's really easy not to. And so I think having, like you said, a lot of kind of those online banks, I know they offer kind of a pot system whereas money comes in, it can instantly take a chunk of it away for tax. It can take chunks away for kind of like little pots for future gear, for pensions and those things.
Yeah.
You can build systems in place to allocate that money for you, so you don't have to kind of go in and do all of that.
Yes.
Really manually.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing about specifically our industry really is the fact that it's quite seasonal.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who gets paid like a month before, it can be feast or famine. So in the summer, you'll probably be minted looking at your bank account like, oh, I'm good for the year, going on a few holidays, that kind of thing. And then winter comes, and I know a lot of people who in winter who are then scrambling, doing these like really small jobs, just trying to like fill up the monthly income thing. And that can happen because our income generally comes during the summer. And I'll die on this hill and preach this constantly. But I do a 6-month payment and a 1-month payment. So the couple pay half their payment 6 months before the wedding and half 1 month before the wedding. And because of that, I never have this. And it's relatively evenly spread out. It's always obviously, my income is obviously more in like, May, June, July.
Yeah, we know that your summers are always really hectic. So you think of it, those July 6 months before that is end of January, February.
Yeah,
so
that
is really seeing you through that quiet
as well.
Season,
Yeah. But I also have a spreadsheet which has projected wedding income and shows when each couple is going to pay, and at the bottom it tells me exactly how much I'll earn per month. I have all my outgoings, tax, national insurance, whatever, like coming off on that spreadsheet. So at the bottom it tells me what is my disposable.
Wish I did. I don't know.
I'll give you the spreadsheet. At the bottom it has what is my disposable per month, and I can sort of work that out. And sometimes, in like November, my disposable will be like minus 400 or something because I've not got any weddings in April and I've not got any in December or something like that. So then I'll go, okay, well, I need to take 400 from this month and put it into this month.
If you've got a system like that, that's really great. I think you should add it to your product store. I think even if it was a really small fee, I think there's some things like that, again, from some people are really data driven and I'm not. I know that you really thrive on kind of numbers behind things, where I think maybe some of the reason that I've always had a saving mentality is because I haven't got those systems in place to go, okay, well, I kind of need to save that much because the rest can be there.
True, yeah.
Because I do my business, I run it so much, there's always, I have to save money because I don't know what the bill is. I've got a rough idea because I have to Ninja, it tells me what I've earned. I can see that kind of revenue, like kind of graph at the top, but I don't kind of tie that to going, okay, I need to save this.
So you tuck it into that in winter?
Yeah, so I have a main business account which everything gets paid into, and then I kind of over the time have worked out a monthly wage that I pay myself. I kind of pay myself the same amount of money. So again, in the summer, my bank balance on my business account looks really fantastic. Then by the time, obviously, I go through maybe 2 or 3 months of the winter with very little coming back into that account. I deposits for new bookings. I'm still taking that chunk out of my wages, if you like. But then it does kind of ebb and flow, but there's still always enough in there. And I do have a separate savings account, which is purely a tax account.
Okay, yeah.
So I do kind of at the end of every month look at what's in my account, more or less just take a quarter of it and just swipe it into that pot.
Yeah.
So it's never kind of actively on every job. It's just, okay, this much is in my account, that quarter goes away. And so I know that I've always got enough, and normally enough then to give myself a little bonus in January. Yeah.
I think that is the way. Obviously, everyone has their own systems. Find out what works for you. Go through, there's plenty of, on Etsy, there's lots of like spreadsheets that you can buy, or Google Sheets that you can buy that are like financial calculators and things like that. Use them, find out what works for you, and just be sensible of it. Don't just let it come in and just spend it, because you have the freedom to do whatever you want with it, and it's so that discipline comes in handy then.
I think it's one of those things as well, isn't it? Again, and particularly now with like social media and meme culture, there's so many of those. Like you'll see those like ones come around in January when it comes to tax bill time of like people like opening cupboards and looking under their carpet. Maybe there's some money under there for my tax bill, and it's like it is funny at the time, but if that is your reality, where you have literally spent too much in the summer and then going, okay, I'm going to have to sell a lens to pay my tax bill, or I'm going to have to ask for payment, or I'm going to get paid late and get fined and that stuff. That's not efficient business. That's the times where it really sucks to be self-employed.
Because you have to be sensible.
That short-term pain or putting these systems in place.
And some of it, and eventually they'll become routine, and you won't even think about putting that 20% away. You won't think, that's that 20% of money. I need that for this. Or
I think that's again one of those other things that people see as an outsider. Like if I showed somebody my bank balance in the end of August or beginning of September who wasn't self-employed, they'd look at you and go, "Oh, come on, mate, you're rich. Why have you got all that money?" And it's like, yeah, because you get taken your tax off every month. It's like when I turn around and have to give 5 figures to the tax man in January.
It's in a chunk.
Like it's all in one lump. Like some of this money isn't my money, and I have to think of it like that it's not my money. And I think that kind of leads on as well, is that, you know, I set up as a sole trader. I've looked at going limited in the past, but and then I think COVID scared me off with kind of first stuff, and I've stayed as a sole trader. But technically, really, to be a sole trader, you don't actually have to have a separate business bank account. If you wanted to, you could just start and get it all paid in. And but it would be so messy. I did it, I think, say between 2015 and 2017. I still just had everything paid into one account, and it was a nightmare to try and do my accounts at the end. So it was one of those first things that I did when I went full time. Is I went and set up a current account just for my business. I changed all of my invoice into everything, only went into that account. And now it is so much easier that I can run my finances as Tom, and then Weddings by Tom very differently. I can pay direct debit at the end of it. I pay that money into that account. And having that, even that very basic system of separation, just made my life so much easier.
And also, again, I'm not an accountant or a mortgage expert, but when it come to my mortgage, I remember there was something to do with my business account versus my personal account. And when I went to get my mortgage, I was in that job during COVID, that I had that full-time job because of COVID and everything happened. And I was like, I need to get into a job for a little bit. So I submitted a wage slip. But because I'd submitted a wage slip, I didn't need to show the mortgage company or even declare that I had a business. Because if I declared I had a business in a period of uncertainty, they might have turned me down.
Yeah, so I had this with my mortgage. Okay. It's the same. So I think I remember you saying that really helped you, didn't it, with yours? Because when I got my mortgage in 2019, it wanted then me to show 3 years of books. So the years technically that I was showing were years 1, 2, and 3, but I hadn't technically filed year 3 yet. And again, I was making big growth in those years. So it was like, if I can file this year, they can almost not take year 1. They can take years 2 and 3. I can show you projected what year 4 is going to look like, because I've got all these weddings booked in, but they don't care. And in the end, I think we were arguing over a really small amount of money. Like we needed, say, like $3,000 more on our mortgage to be able to buy the house that we were having, and they were really hesitant to push our mortgage to that level because of stuff. And in the end, it only came the fact that I'd banked with NatWest so long they could see the money's coming. And in the end, they finally were like, yes, as long as you can do this, we will grant. I think because it was such a small, such a small difference.
We'll get it done.
They were allowed to do it, but I remember then making it a lot more difficult, and again having to show in those early years Excel documents of everything that had come in and come out of the business, where if I could have just gone to bank statements, just printed them off and gone, there you are, it would have made it a lot easier, definitely 100%. For sure. And I think the last thing that is worth saying about when it comes to finances is get insurance. Not only, like, obviously we need PL insurance. A lot of venues ask for public liability. If you get sued, you probably haven't got the money that you would get sued for. So again, covering yourself in that essence. I know a lot of, again, we're not accountants, and that's why a lot of people go into looking into limited businesses, because it can separate their assets if you've got a house and stuff away from that. But for me, I think I've got a really good public liability insurance. All of my equipment is insured, so that if the worst was happened and it was stolen, I haven't got to pay out of my own money to replace all of that equipment. And then again, obviously, it's up to you whether you look into kind of, loss of earnings insurances and stuff like that. That's something personally that I don't have. But I know definitely having all of my kit covered, and all of like my public liability, that's something which was an absolute essential, and I've had from the second.
It sounds really boring, but when you need it, it's not.
And also, sadly, there's not a legal requirement for it. Like if with a car, you have to have car insurance. But when it comes down to this stuff, it's like, unless a venue goes, you can't work here without it, you don't actually need
have
it.
To get it.
But again, if your light stand falls over a dance floor and hits somebody and they sue you, and you've got nothing behind you, you have not got a leg to stand on, and you will not be self-employed for that much longer.
Or insure your kit as well, so that, because there are people that I've seen on my Instagram popping up saying, I've had all my kit stolen from my car or whatever, and all that will happen. So, like, it's one of those things. I think, to summarise a little bit, the boring stuff is generally the most important at this point.
Definitely.
Like, sort out your tax, your insurance, your pension, all of that stuff. Get those positions in place for that, because it is boring to do and think about, but like, that's going to save you at some point in the future. All that stuff will save you for some reason at some point in the future.
I think so. And sitting here, I think both of us kind of in our 10th year, if you like, of kind of being in business, is I think that was something which I still feel that if I look back on when kind of things which seemed like quite foundation stuff that should have been set up far earlier, some of them weren't. Some stuff I did go, okay, from Dot, But some stuff I have learned over the time, or very much learned from my mistakes or other people's mistakes, to go, okay, I probably need to do that. I think still stuff gets added to my contract every year because of either something which happens to me or happens to others, and go, oh, I probably need a clause for that. So again, that stuff, I think we have an episode on CRMs. You have a contract, which we've talked about loads. So if you are starting out and need a good contract, there's one in your store, on my website, which we can link in the thing below. But I think that's probably one of the biggest summaries as we go into this, all told, is to build solid foundations and do all the boring stuff and get it built and working for you, so that all of the joys that come from self-employment, you can make the most of without getting caught in those traps.
Oh, that's a really good place to finish.
I think so. I think that's a really good way to finish. And
hopefully we've gone through some of the main bits. Obviously, there's only so much we can cover in the hour or just over an hour. But yeah, I mean, if any of you guys are looking to go self-employed, or you've got any questions about anything we've spoken about, like the tax or what we're doing with our systems, or if you want that spreadsheet that I've been using, whatever it is, like if you want to drop us a message, well, obviously on our personal Instagrams or on the Wedding Capture Co Instagram, then just let us know, because we do love to help people and chat through this kind
of stuff. Especially when it comes to this as well. I think probably the parting point is that, again, we did touch on it earlier on the episode, is that I definitely feel that whilst I went at the right time and I was ready to go, I still wish that I'd been self-employed for longer and I've lived this dream for far longer. And I think there's probably not many people that you could speak to that weren't terrified before they made the leap. But as soon as they did, felt so much happier. And I think that's the thing, is that, we said some people, if you're really happy in your job, don't add all the scary and the pressures of self-employment if you don't have to. But at the same time, work is so much of our lives that you need to have a good balance, or in order to live a happier life, you need to be happy in your work. I think that's what I'm saying. And for us, that's very much being in self-employment.
Yeah, it definitely brings us fulfillment. And then those times where I think, I wish I was in a full-time job because I could do this and I could everything would be done for me, and I'd have a nice Christmas party in the winter and everything. For all those times, everything else makes it so worth it.
100%.
And now with community, it's even better because we are having Christmas parties and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah,
so
we're off to that tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah,
I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Yeah.
So that's been it. Obviously, any questions, then let us know. But otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks without the Christmas tree, like we said.
And strap in for that one, because that is a long end of year review.
That's a long one. Yeah.
I'm excited to see that one have that out in the wild though. Like, looking back on it now that we recorded it a week ago, there's already stuff in there that I probably should have added that in, but it's long enough by itself.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great Christmas. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you in the next one.